Hi there, this is Anne Marie, and today I felt inspired to have a conversation about commitment and devotion and dedication to your awakening, to being free, to living a life that is in alignment with your higher power. And more than anything, I want to talk about peace of mind and opening our mind and healing our mind and realizing that, as A Course in Miracles tells us, seek not to change the world, but choose to change your mind about the world. So I'm going to say that again because it's actually very, very powerful, and it actually is the key to unlocking striving, trying to achieve, trying to get to being here now, and to losing our defenses, our fears, our concerns, our unworthiness, our sense of lack, our sense of wrongdoing. And so, seek not to change the world, but choose to change your mind about the world. So really what that does, instead of us being completely out there in the world we're perceiving, it means coming back to the world in your mind. And when I say the mind, I'm not talking about the brain. I'm talking about the mind of consciousness, the mind of God, the mind, all-knowing mind. And of course, the Buddhists and a lot of spiritual practices talk about mindfulness. And so this is similar, really. We're coming back to the mind to help us release the pain and the suffering, basically. And that comes from being in the past or the future, or projecting everything out into the world we're perceiving, out onto another, out onto a situation, out onto anything basically that upsets you, anything that rocks your world in a negative way, anything you perceive as broken. And as we come back to our mind, we can start to actually see that it's all there. That's the only place it is. And so therefore that is the only true sustaining way of healing it and being free. And I just want to give a few examples of this from my own experience, but also from a couple of people I've been working with over the last 6 months, really, because it is in the commitment, it is in the dedication and the devotion to wanting to be free, to wanting to be at peace. And just saying that, it feels like I can just breathe, to breathe, to be here, and to allow the flow, the grace of life to move through you, instead of you trying to be out there changing everything and blaming everything, and perceiving a broken world or a broken person or whatever that may be. Because if you perceive that, then it's in your mind. It's a reflection of your mind, friends. This is pretty high level stuff, but if you really, really want to be free, this is the work to come back to your mind, and whatever you're projecting out there is what you're going to see. So when you come back to your mind and you heal your mind and you forgive what you think has happened, and start to realize that as you change your mind and you shift your perceptions and your judgments, the whole world lights up in a very, very different way. You see things very differently, and you're in less judgment, and you take ownership of what you see, basically. So therefore you're free of being a victim. Because if we point the finger out to it's their fault, it's the government's fault, it's whatever we're seeing is just, it's never going to change. You can't, have you noticed you can't actually change the world? You can't change another person, really. If you're really brutally honest with yourself, you can't. We try to, we want to sometimes, don't we? If only they would change, if only they were different, if they would just do this. You're on a road to nowhere. You really are. You'll just waste time and energy, and actually that's what the ego wants you to do. It wants you to do that. But when you come back to noticing what your thoughts are around that, and your fears and your concerns, etc., then you can drop down a little and drop down a little and come back into your presence and actually see what actually are the blocks to love within you. And then you can start to release them and heal them. And actually it's I'm not going to say it's an easy journey, because it isn't. It can feel really hard at times, but it is simple. The process is actually very simple, but it is the commitment that is what's really important. And I also want to say that it's very easy to look for things outside of yourself to heal you, and they can be good stepping stones and rungs on the ladder. I'm not going to deny that. But they will never get to the core. Things, I've done it all, I've tried it all. Massage, reflexology, Reiki, crystals, tarot, homeopathy, herbs, supplements, food. I've pretty much been there and got the t-shirt. And I'm not saying they're wrong, and I'm not dissing them. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is they will not give you sustained freedom. They won't, because they're not at the mind level. And of course, it's great to have those things to help support us. I, absolutely needed them at the time, and they helped build my confidence and my strength, and they did help alleviate a few things and give me some respite. But what I really came to see, friends, was that actually it was only short-lived, and it actually was also giving my power away, to be honest, because if I put my value in a pill or a lotion or something outside of me, it's only a temporary fix. But when we go to the mind training and we come into our mind, it's something that's there 24/7 for eternity, because that's where we are. We're in the mind. And so I kind of cottoned onto that, and I thought, okay, so I live in this perceived body and this mind all the time. I can't get out of it. I've tried to do it, and I know people try to get out of their mind in many ways, don't they? Bless them all, because my God, it's painful in there when there's a war raging. It's horrendous, and I can understand, why we want to escape it. But we have to learn to rise above the battleground in the mind and actually align with the only thing that works, which is God and love and our higher power. And that is there all the time. And then we become dependent on that. And to me, that's a healthy dependence. It's a healthy connection. So yeah, do the things you still need to do. I'm not saying stop any of those. But what I'm saying is also open your mind. Start to see things differently. And then you'll see the world differently. I promise you. I absolutely promise you. So I want to give you a couple of examples of some people, as I say, I've been working with. So there was one friend that she again has like me, she'd been there and she'd got the t-shirt and she'd read the books and she knew the theory really, really well, and she could quote it and talk about it as I could. That's the place that I got to as well. But she still wasn't happy, and there was still a lot of triggers in her life. She was having a lot of fear, a lot of issues, not a lot of issues, but some issues in certain relationships, and just feeling like the joy wasn't there, the love, the true sustained love was not there. She understood it, but she hadn't experienced it and felt it truly. And the pain she was feeling was it was getting to a point where she just said to me, Emery, I just cannot do this anymore. Something has got to change. I've tried so many things. And it was also manifesting physically as well, which it will if it's not dealt with. It has to go somewhere. And so little by little, we started to have chats and started to work together in a very gentle way. And she was ready, she was at that point where she couldn't and didn't want to carry on living in the way she was living. It just was not something she wanted. And so that's what we need. We need to be ready. But then all we then need is a little willingness. If we're willing, God will meet us, and everything will come in to support us. And but we've got to put it in the work, if you like, and be prepared to commit to that. So to start with, there wasn't much change, which is normal because the mind is so set in a certain direction and certain belief. So we have to gently start to soften and loosen those thoughts and actually look at them with gentleness, with kindness, with love, to expose them to the light, so therefore they can be healed. And that can seem very overwhelming and frightening, because again, I know I've been there. And the ego will come up with all the reasons why not to do that. It will come up with every single conceivable trick in the book, every excuse, you name it, it will come up with it. And you just got to get to a point where you just think, yeah, you can come up with that, but I'm determined to heal. I'm determined to find the freedom that my heart desires. And so little by little, we started to address certain things and work together. And things got a little bit worse, in as much as the emotions were really starting to come up, and she was really starting to feel this uncomfortableness. And it's normal as well, quite often, that it can feel worse before it feels better, because the ego is threatened. Its whole concept is threatened. So of course it's going to do something to say, no, don't do that. Don't go to the light, basically. It's what it doesn't want you to go to the light. It doesn't want you to wake up. So it's almost like we feel this barrage of stuff starting to rise within us, and it can feel quite overwhelming. Not always, it depends, but Spirit always works with us where we are. But she kept the faith, we kept connecting, and little by little, there were little light bulb moments and little aha moments. And then over a few months, there was a shift. There was a shift. And she was practicing these things I was giving her every day. Every day she would practice, it's prayer, meditation, this particular process I used, that we can recognize what's going on and then hand it over for healing. And then we have to get out of the way of how that happens. But we have to, as I say, reveal these things that are under the surface and start to expose them. All of the shame and the guilt and the fear and everything has to start to come up. And then a few weeks ago, we were talking about something that was going on for her around her father. And she really wanted a shift in this relationship. And it was a long-standing stuff, all her life, basically, that she realised that she'd never really dealt with, and because she didn't really know how to. But then there were some things that shifted in her, and there were some circumstances around her relationship with her father. And she contacted me and said, Anne-Marie, there's been a miracle. And it was so beautiful to witness, because her heart broke open to the love, the true love. And therefore, that's all she could feel for her father. And the things started to shift there. She just felt very different, much lighter, much more open, less judgmental, because she took responsibility for her own thinking, her own thoughts, her own fears, by doing this mind training. And then a little time after that, also, again, she had a desire to heal the relationship with her brother. And the same thing, you know, she said most of her life things were just never spoken about, things were under the surface, there wasn't a genuine kind of open-hearted relationship, which was all she was desiring. And really that's all we're all desiring. But because we're in these kind of locked down thought processes and grievances and judgments, and basically what they're called attack thoughts. We have these thoughts in our minds about another person or thing, and it's a form of attack. It's not a physical attack, but in our minds they are attacking, and they're very painful to experience. They're not nice, because we're also attacking ourselves. So as she continued with that, again, we met up, and she said, Anne-Marie, I just had another miracle with my brother. And it was just so beautiful. You know, the tipping point had happened. You know, so for several months it was tricky, and she felt she was getting nowhere, and things got worse. But she kept going, and then there it came. And now the trajectory has completely changed, and she's feeling lighter, happier, more content. You know, she's not there wherever there is, you know, like any of us. She realizes there's still work to do. But her trust has been developed now, because she started to see the results, if you like, of her mind training. She's starting to see the shift. And it hasn't been forcing anything. It hasn't been trying to change anyone else. That's the gift of it. She's been changing her mind. And this is when we start to see these miracles happen, and we start to think, wow. And they come in ways that we couldn't orchestrate as well. That's the thing we have to also let go of how we think it's going to happen. That's control, again, from the ego. So this is a deeper level of surrender, to say, well, actually, I don't know. Anne-Marie doesn't know. The ego doesn't know. But my higher power does. And spirit does. And it's always there to guide us. But that's what we're developing as well when we do this regular mind training. We're giving it over to this higher power, to a source that loves and adores us, and will show us and lead us and guide us to everything, basically. And it's going to continue for her. You know, she's got the momentum, and she's opening her heart. She's expressing her truth now to a higher power. And the love then that comes from that is like a ripple, and it's really beautiful. And also another client I've been working with, again, since the beginning of the year, who was in a similar situation, with just ready to change, you know, really ready. She felt a lot of stress, anxiety, and very much, you know, had a plan for life of how she thought it should be and how it should look. And of course, that always takes us away from the now, where the healing is, where the truth is. And of course, if we're always future-based, we can't enjoy the now. And we then worry about the future and the results, etc., etc. So again, her commitment to do this was 100%. And again, to start with, a few little wobbles, a few aha moments. But gradually the shifts came, and she would say to me, Anne-Marie, again, wow, she said, I don't know what it is. I don't know what's happening. I feel lighter. I'm less stressed. I'm less anxious. I'm sleeping better. I'm kinder to myself and other people. And she had, some changes also happening in her life, within her work, and which was, quite big for her, and how to sort of sail through that and manage that, and not so it would just swamp her. And again, she was like, wow, I'm seeing when I'm calmer and kinder and more loving, that's what I get back. And that people actually wanted to support her, and she was letting people in to help her in a way and support her. And again, it's still work in progress, but the shifts, and again, her trust started to build as well when she started to see these shifts and to start just to feel better. And she said, Anne-Marie, I can see the correlation. She said, when I meditate, when I journal, when I pray, my day is better. My weeks are better. When I don't, it just doesn't flow as well. Or I get into the knee-jerk reactions again, and I get into wanting to be in control, basically. And so, again, the dedication to this mind training is key. Because, as I say, you're in your mind all the time. It's there. It's not going to go away. So for me, it's a bit of a no-brainer from that point of view. It's like, well, this is it. This is the one thing that is here now, and I can begin to shift and to change. And from, my own experience as well, I was very much living in survival, totally stressed. The stress hormone, I didn't know it at the time. I had no idea. I just thought that was normal. Always on the edge, always planning, but also in the past, regrets and shame and shoulda, coulda, woulda. And why aren't they changing? And everything was projected out again into the world, onto other people. A big one for me was other people. The world itself didn't sort of seem to stress me out. That one I seemed to be okay with. I didn't get worked up or upset about. And the level of, living in fear. I mean, I've got a little list here of things that are very common that we experience, but, feeling rejected, feeling unworthy, defensive all the time. This we're trying to defend ourselves and justify everything. Lack, there's a lot of lack in my life. Lack of many, many things. Lack of joy, lack of spontaneity, a lack of trust, in a way, to life. I always, there was that sense of, you've got to kind of watch your back. And grief. I had a bucket load of grief that I'd never expressed or dealt with. And because of that, I felt like a victim. But again, I didn't know that until I got through it and to the other side, and I could then look back and think, my God, I was in total victimhood. Feeling hurt, it was, sometimes it would just be something somebody said, or even the way they looked at me. I'd feel this hurt, felt hurt and upset, and that they were unkind, and I would just take it all in. I wasn't the one generally to then rage. I'd rage inside, but I could never voice it. But eventually, of course, it would build up to, could then come out in ways that were not very loving. And quite often to people that weren't even related to what I was experiencing. It would just come out to the nearest person. And I felt a lot of overwhelm a lot of the time. So this sense of, again, for me, getting to my rock bottom in every area of my life, it was not a good place. There was no joy, no true joy. And the masks that I wore, there were many. There were very, very many. And again, I didn't know. I didn't know that. So we have to then, with the mind training, a big part of that is forgiveness, forgiving what we think has happened, forgiving ourselves for what we think we've done, because that's all past and future, always. It's never in the now. And the only place that we find freedom is now, with love, with God. So it's being very mindful of when we're in time, when we're in past and future, because it just strips us of our happiness now. As mentioned, prayer, meditation, journaling, and surrendering, giving things over. And it's like, I used to hear that and I used to say, well, what does that mean? What do you mean give it over? Give it over where? What? How? So for me, it took quite a while to actually get that concept and to practice it. And there was a lot of resistance as well. So working in a way that you start to get that, where you can hand this over to your higher power and let go and trust it and not analyze it to death. Because that was another thing that I used to do as well. And of course, that was all in the mind, And just look at the first 4 letters of the word analyze. It's anal. And ego loves that one. It'll keep you stuck there for a lifetime if you let it. So ditch the analysing. It doesn't work. Trust me. I've been there. It just does not work. It's helpful to see what's happening, yes. But don't stay stuck in it. This is when you notice the feeling and the emotion, you bring it up to the surface. And then that's when we have to hand it over and pray to be guided, to be shown the way. And it will come, because it does. But that's the bit that we have to do. We have to be prepared to expose what it is that we're feeling. And ask to be shown, show me, because I can't do this. And I think that's one of the most humbling things we can do. That's true surrender, is where we get our hands off, trying to control everything and be, in the driver's seat. It's just like, it just doesn't work. We think we're safe, but we're not really, because we're so locked down. Literally, we're rigid. There's no there's no way to bring in flexibility and trust it when we're locked down like that. So we have to let go of the steering wheel, and we have to start to trust. And of course, that is big if you've not had anything in your life to show you that you can trust. So that's something that really has to be developed over a period of time. That isn't a quick fix. And that's why, with these people I've been working with recently, and for myself and other people I've worked with, I just say, this is not a quick fix. So if that's what you want, it's not going to work for us to work together, because there is not a quick fix. And I've tried the quick fixes for myself. I'd go there like, wow, this is it. This is the answer. It was very short-lived. It just wasn't sustained. And that's what I'm saying about the other things I spoke about. They're very nice, but they're not going to truly give you the peace that you deserve. So these this mind training that I'm talking about, by its very nature, is a process. It's an ongoing process. It's a practice every day. And I know not everyone's ready for that, and I respect that completely, because I understand how that feels as well, because we want to do it our way or another way, and the ego likes us to distract and defer. But when are you going to wake up? When do you want to be happy? When do you want to be at peace? It's because you can have it now. You can have it now. And when we drop down into our heart, which for me is like the beautiful light, it's almost like a torch that kind of leads us in the darkness to open our mind and to be receptive to receiving the guidance, and to be receptive to receive the vastness that is available to you of joy and freedom and well-being and lightness and love. And then it gets to a point where you can't help but share that wherever you go. It's very natural. And that's how we change the world. If you want to change it, it's you be it. You are the one. So every time you try and seek it from something or someone else, it's very short-lived. And the thing is, when you're in this space of being present and trusting and asking for the guidance, everything changes around you. Relationships become so much more richer, and they're not codependent. You're not dependent on that person for your joy or happiness, for anything. Yet you can just be in that relationship from a loving heart. And it's just healthier. And you free the other person as well. Yeah. So, yeah, if you have any questions or concerns, or scratching your head and thinking, well, yeah, but how does that really work? Or could it work for this situation? Or whatever that may be for you, do reach out. This path isn't for everyone. I appreciate that. I really do. But if your heart is feeling, if there's a racing in your heart, or there's something like butterflies in your stomach, quite often that's a sign that shows you there's something that you're wanting to know more, and you're curious. So trust that, trust the feeling, and reach out if you would like to. And I offer one-to-ones in a way that work for people. Everyone is different of how that will work for them. But if you're ready for that commitment and dedication and devotion to waking up and to doing the mind training and healing your mind and changing your mind, you will see a different world. And all the great sages and the great mystics and the great spiritual teachers, this is exactly what they do. It's within. It's the inner work. It's the commitment every day. Every day. Yeah. So thank you, and I send you lots of love, and I pray that wherever you find yourself, however you are right now, that you open up to this vast love that's available to you, and in your mind you start to feel a sense of peace and freedom, because, my friend, you really deserve it. So sending you lots of love, and here's to freedom of the mind. Amen. Thank you.